Hi, my name is Jennifer Rosseter, and I am here tonight at Florida Craft Art, and I'm going to be demonstrating Sgraffito. I'm here until 8, but Florida Craft Art, the gallery, is open until 9, and they have a fabulous member show going on that you can visit during ArtWalk tonight. So if you're anywhere in the downtown area, we'd love to see you stop by. I'm going to work on some tiles here, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what I'm doing. This is the kind of work that I'm working on now. These are clay tiles, and they're mounted in reclaimed cast iron farm gears. And this is another piece of Sgraffito work. This type of work, Sgraffito, actually originates in Italy, the name. And it's a process by which, when it's used on clay, I use underglaze. So I put underglaze on the surface of the bowl. So in this case, I covered the entire bowl with about 4 or 5 shades of blue, turquoise, white, a little lavender, and then I use these particular tools. These are made by a company called Diamond Core. Those are the tools that I especially like because I have a whole great big wad of them that I've collected. So I use these tools. Different shaped blades will make a different kind of mark, so a different kind of cut, which I especially like in this work because it adds variety and interest to the surface. So how I like to start, I've prepared these tiles. This piece is going for this, essentially. And so this is a white clay underneath, and I've put a black underglaze on it. And I've started my drawing a little bit. I've given myself just a little pencil underlayment so I know where I'm going. And I've just started to make some marks. I like to start by outlining what I'm doing so that I know what I'm taking away and what I'm leaving, because ultimately I'm going to take the background away and bits of the owl. But for the most part, when I'm working on the owl, I'm drawing with various shape marks. So I'm starting with this tool, which is a really, it's almost like a pencil. It's the end of it, it needs to be glued. The tip feels like sandpaper a little bit. So it scratches pretty nicely and pretty cleanly on this clay. So it's removing the black underglaze, and as I go, I want to just get rid of that clay dust. So so I can see where I'm going, really. And also, if you are working with clay at all, you know that the dust is not a healthy thing to breathe. So I pretty much like to get rid of that before it's dry. My tile is leather hard, and that is a reference to a state of dryness that's it's not really wet like fresh clay, and it's also not completely dry, which would be called bone dry. So for carving, that's the best place to be. It lets the tile keep its shape while I'm moving it around, but still gives me enough moisture in it to pull away the surface without making it crack.
Jennifer, how do you like to dry, not fully, but to leather hard, how do you like to dry your tiles? Because they clearly are not warped at all.
Right.
Repeat the question, please.
The question was, how do I like to dry my tiles so that I don't get any warping? And that really, it starts right at the very beginning, because when I roll them, I use a slab roller, and as I'm rolling them, with every roll, I'll flip the slab and rotate it a quarter of a turn, which helps compress the clay and moves the particles out evenly, because clay ultimately likes to return to its original shape, and it needs a lot of compression in order not to do that. And as I flip it, I do that on drywall that's been taped so that I don't get the plaster into the clay, which can make clay things explode. So the key there is that there's no bending of that slab ever. So it's rolled, I lay a sheet of drywall on top, and then get under the blanket and flip it over. So I always keep the slab flat. And then once it's rolled, then I'll use a metal rib and basically scratch up the surface, and then a smooth rib, and smooth it out again so it's compressed again. And then I'll use drywall again to take it off the slab roller. I have some metal shapes that I use, sort of like a giant cookie cutter, to cut these circles, and I have various sizes. So then I'll cut those shapes and flip it on to another piece of drywall and sandwich it between drywall. And then I put weight on the top. And once it's dried, a little bit, because if I leave it between the drywall too long, it will just suck all the moisture out of it. So once it's dried, a little bit where I feel like it's a good state, then I will either put plastic under it and plastic on top, and then I'll put Ziploc bags filled with flour, because they're very soft, but they give it weight, but they're not, they don't dent the clay, because when the clay is still very soft, it's really easy to dent it, even just with anything that you're putting on top of it. And then from there, if I need to keep the slabs for a while, I'll move them to a damp box, which is a box with plaster in the bottom, and it basically retains humidity to keep the clay moist for extended periods. But yes, you're welcome. And then when I'm done with all the carving and letting them dry, then I weight them again with those flour sacks, and that's really, you could put many different kinds of weight on them, but that's cheap, and they're soft. So.
And you continue with because that looks like a 14-inch
Yep.
plate. I'm going to call it a plate, but it's a tile.
Yep, and that is exactly how I do those. The only other thing with those is in respect to the firing, because it is such a large slab. Those kind of slabs are really easy to crack for many reasons during the firing. And what I like to do is I use silica sand on the shelf, and I put a pretty good layer of it, and then I use a serrated rib, or I actually have some painting tools that have cutouts on the bottom, and I'll essentially rake the sand so that it's very even and and continuous. It will have rivers through it, but it's very even. And then I'll put the clay slab on that and fire it at a very slow speed. And then I always let it cool completely on its own. I never, some people are anxious to get their things out of the kiln, and they're, propping it open, pulling the peeps, or, essentially rushing the cooling. But I don't do that. I just keep it plugged up, keep the lid shut, and let it cool very slowly, very naturally on its own. Which is not to say that I haven't ever had something crack, because of course I have. But actually it was before I started using the sand, and I was using alumina hydrate, and I think that just wasn't enough. But yeah, it's that has worked really, really well for me.
Thank you so much. That's a really great answer.
You're welcome. That is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And on something like that tile, it's it's super detailed. There is a tremendous amount of time in the making of that, and for it to crack is just devastating. So a little bit of waiting on the drying, on the kiln cooling is totally worth it. So I'm moving down this tile, and still kind of getting my drawing in place before I start working out some marks with the other tools. And actually I am going to start that now. So I'm looking for something that's a little bit round to give me some of these softer round shapes that I have here and here. So I'm using a round tip there. And I just am doing a really short, sort of quick stroke to pick off.
Have a seat.
Kathy, hi, how are you? Gosh, thank you for coming to see me here.
I have a piece now. This is so intrigued.
Kathy is here from Bradenton.
Oh.
So, yeah, I appreciate you coming.
So we're doing Facebook Live now.
Okay.
That's why you can see this here. So we have some people watching Jennifer demonstrate.
So I'm establishing some of these round marks here. And I am going to pick out, let's see, what do I want? Some of the linear marks with this really fine tool. And I'm sorry I can't tell you what these are actually called, because they have names like P11. And
Give him a look on. It's called Diamond.
Diamond Core.
I just bought them. Excited. And how long do they last?
They have replaceable blades. The blades do wear down, and I have actually worn through the entire blade. But you know, how long it takes to do that is really, you know, it depends how you're using them and how often you're using them. If I am using groggy clay, they wear down quite a bit faster.
What clay body do you use?
This is Laguna B-Mix.
Phoenix.
B-Mix.
Oh, B-Mix.
And what is this coating on it?
That is Amico underglaze. The ones that I like are the LUG series, which actually just stands for liquid underglaze. But they have another series that are called Velvet. And the Velvet ones, I feel like are just a little more transparent. And I like a denser pigment because I like a really flat, opaque surface. And even when I'm doing this, in which, you know, I layered a lot of colors, so some of this is dark, some is light, but I still want those to, you know, to be very deliberate. So, you know, I like.
The bottom is so beautiful. Oh my God.
Oh, thanks.
Oh my gosh. I'm just, it is.
You know, you have to hide something on the bottom.
I do too.
Yeah. So I am going to use a sharper sort of wide tool now, and I'm going to work on this area on the bottom. And some of these tools, well, actually any of the tools, you can pull with them, and you'll get a little different kind of mark than if you push with them. And as well, if you flip them over and use them from the bottom side. And so, you know, that just all takes a little practice and, you know, kind of what you're comfortable with. This is going to give me kind of a pointy end. Whereas the round one that I was using gave me a softer round shape. And clay shrinks when it's fired. And this particular clay, I think has about a 12% shrinkage. And that, you know, maybe doesn't sound like that much, but actually it's pretty marked from the beginning to the end.
Dentures, they can close up.
No. Well, everything will shrink. They won't. Hi, Tina.
Well,
Well, how does that do? the fact that it shrinks 12% go into your thinking about anything?
Yes. So because I'm mounting these in these reclaimed metal gear frames, I need to make sure that they're going to fit inside without being too small. The way these are, they don't have, they're not very forgiving. So, you know, the area to mount is not very big. So if I haven't calculated that right, then they'll be too small and they'll just drop right out the back. So I need to think about that from the beginning and calculate if I have 12% shrinking, then how big do these need to be so that after they're fired, they'll still be the right size.
And you can't just get your calculator out and calculate 12%.
Well, you exactly can.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's all math, huh?
And you
Yes.
chose on one to do it more 3D, and the other one you let it drop into the gears.
Yep. And this this is a bigger gear, and actually I have a whole bunch of different types of these, and there are a bunch of them here at Florida Craft Art. And you know, so they're in all different shapes, and once I have them out of the kiln, I'll line up basically all the shapes I have and just kind of try them out and see, you know, which seems like the right attitude for that particular piece.
Are you going to run out of gears?
Well, I have run out of them several times, actually. Originally, the first time I bought these, I just stumbled on them at an antique fair, and I thought they were really nice shapes. So I bought that. You know, I bought a dozen of them or so, really without any idea what I was going to do with them. This hadn't occurred to me yet. It was just like, these are going to be really good for something. I just don't know what it is yet.
That's such an artist.
Exactly.
Yeah. So and then once I thought of this, and I absolutely did run out. And at that time, we were living in Michigan. We moved here in 2020. But we lived in a very rural area. We lived on 24 acres. Our neighbors were all farmers. And so my husband hit up some of our farmer neighbors for any of these that might be, you know, laying around in their barn. Yeah.
Of course he did.
Because they, you know, now they're plastic. They don't they don't do them like this anymore. So these are quite old. And we did come up with some of them that way, and then following that, you know, I just started looking in other places, and actually
For you too.
yeah.
Now we're all going to be on the lookout.
Jennifer, I wanted you to meet Sarah Butts. This is Sarah. She's
Hi,
used to
hi,
be the
Sarah.
president of Florida Craft Art.
Nice to
She's
meet you.
A fiber artist, and I was at her studio all morning dying.
I brought Katie her fabric.
Oh, lovely. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I love your work.
Thank you.
Now, this is making me really want a piece now that I know about
Probably why
story of
she's
the
doing
gears.
this.
The story
Well,
of the
she's
gears.
doing it because I asked her to, and I really appreciate it because I know how busy she is.
The metal gear that you see in the tile behind me, those are, my husband informed me, flywheels from, I don't know, help me out, Rich, something on a car.
So it goes between the transmission and the engine.
Okay,
And the starter engages the gears that are on the outside.
okay.
Oh, I can see Jen now in the junkyard going up.
That is exactly it. Yeah.
It's a flex plate.
Actually, Tarpon Springs has a architectural antiques place, and yes, that is exactly what I did. And we made a trip to Tarpon Springs specifically because I found that place online, and I just, I wanted to dig through and just kind of see what I could find there. And you know what, Katie? When I did that? It was when you were doing your show for environmental impact.
Oh.
And you called me and you said, I'd really like to see you put something in this show. I love those tiles you're doing, but I know you can do them bigger. It's like, oh, right. So that's my challenge now. Where am I going to find a bigger thing? And yeah, so I was just
your whale
I was just
promotion.
scavenging.
I remember that.
Yes.
I wanted to ask if I could use it.
Yes. So that's how that works.
We have a place like that in Tampa on Cypress Avenue, just west of McDill. It's a huge architectural salvage. I call it a junkyard, but it's beautiful. So.
I have seen that online, and it's been on my radar to make a trip over there.
I'll meet you there. It's 2 blocks from my house.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'd love to poke around that place.
Another artist you might want to meet is Dominique Gilbert. She works in steel.
I recall her work.
Her work was in the last exhibit here.
Yes.
It's really collaborative, and she might have some ideas for you too.
Thank you. So yeah, you just never know. Sometimes that's what it takes. Somebody to say, I know you can do that thing.
Katie.
Jen, on your tiles, do you start with sketching your design onto the tile and then etching it out, or do you just go straight into etching?
Just repeat the question, please.
The question is, do I start with a sketch on the tile before I start carving it out? And the answer is yes, I do. I generally have a really specific thing that I'm going for, and it's pretty much when you're digging out the clay, it's pretty much impossible to go back, with the exception of covering up. I mean, you could repaint black, but you'd still have those marks. So I just I want to know where I'm going, so that ultimately I get there. Okay, so this is where I am at this moment, and I am gonna finish up this sort of breastplate area before I start pulling out those little flowers and the background.
And you choose why? What subjects do you choose and why?
Well, as I mentioned, we moved here from Michigan in 2020, and we lived in a very rural area. We didn't farm, but we had 24 acres, and we leased it to a farmer, and all of our neighbors were farmers, and so consequently, we had a lot of wildlife. We would see 35, 40 deer in our backyard in the morning, hence the deer. We had owls and hawks that would sit on the top of the barn. You could see them, they're just waiting for a bunny, something to go after. We had, a whole nest of baby bunnies that the mama had built under the wood chips around a tree in our yard. birds would nest. There's some kind of bird that builds their nest on the ground. So there'd be like markers around all these things for who was mowing. To not go over those things. We had a red fox that we saw regularly, raccoons, just all kinds of wildlife. So that's where these come from. And my background is in graphic design and illustration. So when I started doing clay, which was about 5 years ago, I just could not make a thing without drawing on the surface. It just is literally, I can't do it.
What do you mean without drawing on the surface?
I just am like compelled. I am compelled to draw on it.
Drawing on the surface.
Yeah.
Yes. Same.
Yeah.
Did I say that I love you? Yeah, I said that.
It shocks me that you only started in clay 5 years ago, though,
It's so
because your work is so incredible.
Thank you so much, Tina. I actually, I was, as I said, my background is in graphic design and illustration, so I had a design studio, and I was very busy. So even illustration, I was hiring it out. I just didn't have time. And about 6 years ago, I had a friend who was one of my college roommates. We went to Kendall College of Art and Design together in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was an illustration major too. And she sort of gave me a challenge because I realized that I hadn't picked up a paintbrush in like 20 years. And she said, you should paint 100 of something. It doesn't matter what it is, just whatever you want. And I was in the grocery store and I was talking to her on my phone. And so I bought pears. Produce, pears. Sure, I'll do these. And I started painting pears. And it was really a great exercise because what it does is it sort of gives you permission to just to experiment. And it's not important that you do a great job on every piece. You're going to do it 100 times. So it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I can screw it up. I can try this. I can try that. I can try all these things because I have another one right behind it. So it's just, it actually is really a great exercise. And through that, through the course of that, the idea is that you will find your voice. And so that's what I did. And that led me to a few gallery shows with, those 100 paintings, 115 actually. And after I was done with that, I was still painting, and I do still paint. But I just thought, you know what, I think a clay class would be fun. And so, I took one at a tiny little community studio. There were like a maximum of 8 people who could be in this studio. I learned to throw. I had a couple of terrific instructors there. One of them, Lane Kaufman, teaches at Michigan State University, and he's a master thrower. There was virtually nothing that he couldn't do. He is a lot like Don Williams. And yeah, you know, I mean, people say, how did you choose clay? And the reality is that I didn't really choose clay. I feel like clay chose me, and that's kind of how that works, because you know, it's such a deep hole and so much opportunity in the way that you work with clay, that once you start, it's very hard to stop. And for me, I like to experiment, and so yeah, that gives me an opportunity to do that. And every time I'm done with one thing, I am, you know, sort of looking for the next challenge. So I'm going to start on the background now, and I'm going to use this flat tool called an FP8. Actually, I can tell you that one because it's stamped in the side. And when I start pulling away the background, I'm using the side, and I'm using it flat as well. But I don't want to pull away all of the background. I like to leave these little fragments because I just think it's more interesting. You know, it makes another sort of random pattern in the background. So that's what's going on here. So, you know, none of these are the same size or shape exactly, but it just activates what's going on in the background, and you know, adds another layer of interest there. So
Was your drawing style this same style, or is this something that has evolved? This it's almost a printmaker style of like almost woodcut.
yeah, interesting that you should say that. You know, when I was a little girl, we lived in Adrian, Michigan, which is about 30 minutes from the Michigan-Ohio border. And one of the jewels in Toledo, Ohio, is the Toledo Museum of Art. And there were 7 kids in my family, and my mother was very appreciative of art. And at the Toledo Museum offered youth classes. And so from 3rd grade to 8th grade, so for 5 years, we carpooled with another family every Saturday. So I have no cartoon history in my childhood. And I still don't like animated movies, and I think that's why. But so every Saturday we carpooled to the Toledo Museum of Art and participated in their youth classes. And what those classes were, the year was split up into thirds, and you spent a third of the year in 2-dimensional art, a third of the year in 3-dimensional art like clay, and a third of the year in the galleries, where you, you know, were with a instructor or a docent who talked about the art and explained, these different artists and their style. And one of the things that we did in the two-dimensional segment is woodcuts. And so when I started doing clay, I felt like, oh, I've done this before. These are just like doing woodcuts. And actually, I also do a similar thing on some other types of work in which I will carve a linoleum block with linoleum tools / wood carving tools, and then I'll use that as a printing block on clay. So I'll use underglaze, and I use a foam roller like you would use a brayer in printmaking, and use it just like you would a wood block with ink. So yeah, all those things they wind up surfacing again. And of course, at that time, I was not super appreciative that every Saturday, when you wanted to be sleeping in, you had to get up so you could drive to the museum and spend the day in classes there. But now, of course, I am very appreciative, and what a great opportunity that was.
So it sounds like that may have influenced you in becoming an artist.
It absolutely did influence me, and I'm sure it did influence me in becoming an artist because I consistently took art classes. I had an art teacher who was also very influential. He's a watercolor painter. His name is Tom Theory, and he still is around, and he still paints today. He's an amazing watercolorist. And my plan was I had applied and been accepted to go to U of M as a chemistry major, because I've always really liked science, and I loved science and chemistry in school. When my art teacher found out about that, he called my parents. Yeah, he called my parents and said, it's not going to be good for her. She's going to be really bored doing that, and I think she could have a great career as an artist, and let me get her a scholarship, and he did, and so off I went to art school.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Kendall College of Art and Design in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and at that time it was a private art school. Now it is part of Ferris State University, so it's much more accessible now than it was then. Then, as with pretty much generally every art school, they are very expensive, and so that is, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow when you're just graduating and deciding where you're going to go and what you're going to do, and plus that whole starving artist thing. You hear so much of that it just seems like that's just not even a possibility.
So it sounds like your entire life would have been different had the museum not offered educational classes for children.
I think that is true, and I am such a huge proponent of classes like forever, for your lifetime. and I still take classes. There's always more to learn. There's more to learn in whatever you're doing. There's more to learn in different mediums, and things you do in one medium can influence what you're doing in another medium. So, yeah, I mean, taking classes, and St. Pete certainly has its share of opportunities for classes. I don't know, Katie, is that something that goes on here?
We do some workshops, but really the Morean Art Center is set up for, and Dunedin Fine Art Center is a wonderful place
Yes.
to take classes also. But we will offer often a workshop that relates to a particular exhibition that we're doing.
Okay.
We also have a once a quarter program at the moment, but we want it to be once a month, called Creative Discovery Workshop for Children and Families. And it's very similar to what you were talking about.
Oh, perfect.
Educating young people and their families about fine craft.
Okay.
We were offering it before the pandemic on a regular monthly basis, and then we stopped during the pandemic. But we're getting ready to start again. I'm just working on getting sponsors to help fund it.
Okay.
And we have it taught by professional artists, and we also write the curriculum so that it aligns with Florida standards, so that if the family wants to take it to the teachers, it has a vocabulary, words, and in other words, it's an actual curriculum like a person would take in a class. A child would take in a class.
Well, I think that that is always a good thing. Knowledge, education is something you can do for yourself, lifelong, and it is always a good thing. Education is never wasted.
And what are you doing now?
Well, actually, in reality, I got the newsletter from the Morean Art Center today, and I forwarded it to Tina. And yes, I earmarked several classes that I'm interested in taking. There are several clay classes. There's a sculpture class that's going on. There's one about teapots that would be fun. And I've been keeping my eye on Dunedin Fine Arts Center as well, because there is a woman there, and her name is escaping me at the moment, but she just had a show downtown at another gallery, and she's an amazing painter, and I'd like to take some painting classes again.
Are you talking about Christine DiStiola?
I am.
Yes, well, she's one of our Art Loft artists. Her studio's
She
upstairs.
is?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yes.
I love her
Oh,
work.
yes, her work is terrific, and I know you would like it because it's also very graphic.
Yes,
And it's
yes it is. I met her recently, and that is exactly what I said to her. I love how she breaks up the space with color. I love her, her use of color, and how she simplifies the color planes. I had no idea she was one of your artists upstairs. She's not
She should be
teaching
there tonight, so you can go see her when you're done demonstrating.
upstairs.
Upstairs in Art Loft.
I've never been up there.
Oh, really? Well, there's 22 artists upstairs, and they always have an exhibit in the lobby. And this month it's Lee West who's exhibiting, and
Okay.
she's a wonderful painter. She's had a studio here for many years. We have people like Betsy Lester, who teaches at Eckerd College. Rebecca Skelton, who also has taught at the universities and the Moorian. So there's a lot of, we have a photographer upstairs who's an amazing, wonderful photographer. If you ever need photography of your work or a headshot, named Brian James.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have to go up there and visit them. And they're always open the second Saturday, or by chance, there's some of them that are there every day of the week, and then there's some that, come in different times of day.
Okay. Yeah, I would.
Working Art Studios.
I would love to see her again, and I'd love to see her teaching classes somewhere.
James, I knew that sounded familiar. I had earmarked him.
So what I'm doing now, this is also Sgraffito, but it's different. And these are some little cups that I made. These particular cups have a black slip on the outside. It doesn't look exactly black right now, but it'll fire black. And it's white. They'll be white on the inside. This is one that I've already done. So when, you can see the difference in the clay, that this is white with black underneath, this particular one. But so you can see the where I've cut and exposed that little bit of black.
And you were using a pink magic marker. That's when we said, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I was using a highlighter. It'll burn off in the firing. And I was just giving myself kind of a center mark, sort of a place to start, which I've cut it away here now. Because in doing this, that's what I want to do. I want to start at the middle and then just kind of keep cutting out from that. So these tools are called fluting tools, and they're quite a bit different from the other ones.
Tools?
Fluting.
Fluting.
So they're very kind of bendy, and for this kind of work, I need to really kind of dig in so that I can get the other color that I want to expose. The slip is quite a bit thicker than the underglaze is on here. So yeah, I need this fluting tool, and I'm pushing it away from me here. I could pull it too, but it depending on sort of what kind of movement you're making with your wrist. I'm just making a really sort of short, quick flick with my wrist to pull those shapes out, and I'm just going to keep moving around this, radiating out from the middle, and I'm trying to keep it symmetrical, side to side. So as I cut, I'm cutting on one side and then the other, just to keep it even.
Did you throw these on the wheel?
I did not throw these. These are slip cast. And that is how, you could have painted black slip on the outside, but I wanted these to be really even. Bye, Tina. Be really even and smooth. Yeah, they're slip cast with, I tinted the slip black, pour that into my mold, leave it for a minute, dump it out, then pour the white in, and then that stays for about 25 minutes, and then pour that out, and then the whole thing just kind of sits for a while until it's the mold has absorbed enough water to release it, and then I can pull it out. And one of the things that I like about that is that, one of the things that I like is that the sizes become very consistent. So ultimately, what I'm planning to do is to do these in sets. I'm going to make a tray with 4 related cups. Hey, how are you?
And what kind of beverage do you imagine people drinking out of? Espresso or?
I imagine. I mean, they could be espresso. They could be also like whiskey or limoncello or something like that. Hello. This is
George, my husband.
Hi, George. So this is Janet. She is from my studio.
Yes, from Texas, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say hello, wonderful ceramic artist. Yeah.
Great to be here.
And this is Kimberly. Can you see her?
Kimberly, yes.
Kimberly Cummings, also ceramic artist.
Jennifer was my partner in crime in Cincinnati.
Really?
That is true.
Wow.
We had fun.
It was fun. Did you go?
No, what a small world.
You mean at
Ensika.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, the one that they just
Sika.
had.
Yeah. So as I'm working around the rim, I'm supporting it with my hands because these little shapes they're not very thick, and they also dry out very quickly. And I've already cracked one of them doing exactly this around the rim.
Will it be just black and white? Will it be black and white? Will it be like this bowl, but just black and white?
Actually, I am thinking that I want to use a really bright color on the inside. So it'll be black and white on the outside, but I see it as like with a bright orange or, just.
Them as teacups, Jim.
I mean,
You'd be done in 2 sips.
they could be, they could be a cup like that. The thing about that is the heat. Without a handle. And I have done some of these kind of cups with a handle as well, specifically for espresso or something, like that.
Tequila.
Well,
Tequila.
also, if you think about the Asian way of serving tea,
Yes.
it's not big cups. It's
Right.
small.
That is
They
true.
are normally like that, with their tea ceremonies and everything.
Exactly.
So I can see that. But we also have another ceramic artist, Shelley Reale, who creates a set of whiskey with, she has cup, but it's totally different than you. But I'm thinking that could make kind of a cool little setup with the different artists doing things for spirits.
Yes, absolutely.
So the tool you're using, I know, is a diamond core.
Yep. This is one of their fluting tools. This one's called an X2. And actually I bought these in a set. So each of these have a little different shape to them. This one is kind of flat on the top, and this one is a little bit rounded, whereas this one has more of a, or this one's a little bit rounded. Actually, this one's a little bit rounded. This one's a little more pointy. I had intended to pick up the more pointy one, but too late now.
So were you making cups with this motif prior to owning these tools, or did you
Once you have the tools, determine that this would be a effective way to use them.
Yes, I was making things more like this without the fluting tools, with the regular tools. So this is also carved, but it's a really different look to it. Like this one also is carved with the other tools, and they're just quite a bit different. It's not fired, by the way, because the slip actually it takes a fair amount of digging to get through it. It's even though this was my second go at doing these cups, because the first time I was doing it, I left the black on the outside for 3 minutes, which I thought was not very long. But it was really hard for me to get into that, to expose, what was under it. And even this, at 1 minute, the black layer, it still is quite thick. So it really takes, it takes a bit of getting in there. And these fluting tools, because they have some flexibility, they will do that. I mean, it's a pretty deep dig.
So this has black underglaze?
It's black slip. Black slip on the outside and white slip on the inside. So I'm just going around this and developing that starburst shape.
Jen, when you do your bowls, well, this bowl in particular,
Yeah.
do you, I heard you that you like the more matte finish that the lugs give you.
Yeah.
And then do you just do a clear gloss glaze on the unpainted, I know people like to say glaze, but I always say painted surface, and if so, what type of clear glaze do you like?
So I use Amico Siegfried Clear, I think it's HF9 on the back side, or anytime I want to put a clear glaze on it. And this actually was sprayed. I've enlisted my husband to be my sprayer because he has, kind of a little background restoring cars. And
Oh my gosh, is he for hire? Because I hate spraying.
well, yeah, I feel like there are so many things that you have to do. So if I can offload some of that, I am all for it.
I'm teaching my husband to wedge because I can't wedge anymore. Well, I mean, I can a couple pounds, but that's it. And he flipped out. He said, "What? This is really hard." So yeah.
Yes, I have taught my husband to use the slab roller. Yeah, he's doing this for me. When I do these cups, I'm going to ask him to make me wood trays because he also does custom furniture. And so I'm going to ask him to make, some just really beautiful wood trays for me to hold a series of these. But back to your question, I actually don't love clear glaze over this kind of carving.
Right.
And I found a product a few years ago that is made in Australia. And gosh, I'm having a mind blank on it now. Yes, liquid quartz. It's called liquid quartz. It's made by a company called Made of Australia. And so they have it on their website. It's it looks like water. It, depending on how much you buy, it comes in a spray bottle. If they had a U.S. outlet, which they don't yet, I would buy it, in a bucket so that I could dip in it.
Clear glaze.
But so I buy it in a spray bottle. It's non-toxic, and what it does. So after all this is fired, then I'll spray the unglazed surface with liquid quartz, and it seals up. It seals up the pores, and actually. You can see do you see how that just beads up?
Yes, yeah.
It just totally, totally beads up. And so that's what it does. And you can put it in the dishwasher. It'll essentially...
I thought you were saying that was the clear on the outside. You're saying that we can't even see a clear glaze.
Right. You can't even see it.
Sealant.
Yeah, it's a sealant. It's not a glaze, so it's a cold finish. You're not firing it afterwards. So the back is fired with the glaze, but this is finished with liquid quartz, which does make it food safe. You can use it, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change the way the underglaze looks. And clear
In Australia?
Yeah, clear glaze absolutely changes the way the underglaze looks, and I just am not always crazy about that. So yeah, I use that on virtually everything. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
So I noticed that someone who's also in the exhibition, Leslie Nolan, is on Facebook watching us, and she's the one
nice.
that made the tea with grandma over there.
Oh, very nice.
Garden,
Yes.
and very well-known artist from the Tallahassee area. So,
Well, thank you for joining us, Leslie. So this is what that looks like now. So it's a definitely a different way of carving, a different looking kind of surface than than this one was, but they're technically both Sgraffito.
I've heard that word before.
Yes.
My wife's a potter.
Yes, I know that.
I've heard it nowhere else.
Sgraffito, he said he's heard that word. Ding dong.
well, it's an Italian word, meaning it doesn't mean scratch through. Sgraffito, and it's not a C, it's a G.
That's what I've heard.
Sgraffito. Sgraffito.
What do you mean?
It's S-G.
R-A-F.
Yes,
Not
that is
SC.
true. That is true. Yeah, and technically, I'm not sure what the exact translation is. If that's exactly what it means, scratch through, but that is overall the technique, to scratch through the surface to reveal another color or another layer underneath. So I'm going to work now on another flat tile, and I've prepared this tile with underglaze and a little bit of glaze. So the blue that you see here is actually glaze, so that will fire glossy. and the black is underglaze, and it will be matte. I like that. I like to see that contrast sometimes. Sometimes it's just kind of another dimension going on. This is going in the same direction as this one. You've seen all these before, but
Are these birds from the farm, like, you know, some of the, and it's your interpretation?
yes, yes, in a broad way, yeah, because we had all kinds of animals, all kinds of birds, etc. But this obviously is a very stylized version of that. I mean, it's not a particular kind of bird.
It's more of a symbol of a bird.
Yeah, it would
You're
be.
doing a graphic symbol.
Yes, I would be very surprised to see that in my garden. So.
The owl is very owl-like.
Yeah, the owl is more owl-like. You know, he's still a little still definitely, you know, stylized. And I always use that kind of sort of human eye. And actually, I have always used that, and I sort of forgot about it, but I was going through a very old now portfolio from my art school days when we moved here to Florida, because, you know, packing up and getting rid of many things. But yes, I had an ink drawing of a raven with exactly those same eyes. So that was a very long time ago. And yeah, I am probably sure how I came to be doing that. We talked earlier about going to the Toledo Museum of Art and taking youth classes there. And one of the things that I really liked about that museum, and I'm sure I was heavily influenced by, is their giant statues and sarcophagus and all kinds of those things. And, you know, Egyptian art is very stylized. And even though these are, you know, antiquities that are very, very old, that work still strikes me as modern. And I've just always loved Egyptian art and still do. Just in the same way that they will do sculpture in what they described as wanting to show sort of the best angle or the best position. So they'll have someone who is, you know, where his body is facing sideways and his, you know, face is a different way. And it's like you couldn't actually stand that way ever. It would be impossible. But they also, you know, do these really stylized eyes. And probably that is where that has surfaced for me.
When I was in high school, I was very influenced by Egyptian art also.
Oh, yeah.
And I did a 6-foot-tall painting of
Whoa.
a girl in a bikini standing like an Egyptian.
Oh.
And it hung in the Norton Museum of Art in this show. Yeah, in the student show. I mean, it was a student show that they hung there. But at any rate, it was, it was all very flat, you know, very flat paint. So it was good.
I want to see that.
I'm going to go see about switching phones. Excuse me.
So I am starting to scratch out some of the patterns on this bird. So this is what I'm doing with this little sort of pointy diamond core tool FP1. Now that they put the name in
I
that.
just want to say that to our Facebook that we are going to switch phones and we will be back on, so please come back on. I'm going to show Leslie's Nolan's piece here as she is watching, and we have this wonderful setup here with Jennifer demonstrating in the gallery. So we'll be back in a few minutes, so please join us again.